Hello, I'm slightly repellent Al Jorgensen, and today we're going to examine the paucity of decent Games Master advice.
One, two, three, four, five.
Games Master advice. Decent Games Master advice. It's a bit of a sticky wicket. Or to put it another way, it's bare complicated, innit, bruv? So, yeah, it's tricky. I've got a half-finished book that I've had half-finished for years of my Games Master advice, but there's a good reason that I don't finish it. Firstly, I don't really know consciously what it is that I do that is so good in other people's opinion, as a games master or as a games designer. I run on instinct most of the time, and I'm a low prep improvisational games master. I think those instincts, that necessary mental agility, which I don't have all of the time, but I think these are things that you either just have or which you develop over time through personal experience. You exercise those muscles, you get better at that sort of thing. You know, you learn your players if you have a regular group. Secondly, I'm almost never impressed with the Games Master advice that does appear in any of the books that you get. You know, what appears in those books tends to be either bland, generic and obvious, or in the case of a lot of Japanese tabletop games and a great many story games, more and more it seems, the advice that they give is highly prescriptivist, telling you exactly how to run the games, what people are even allowed to play those games, how they should play them, and this often comes with a formalized structure of acts or missions, things like that. Time after time, you will hear me, while reviewing games, coming down on the GM book or section of the book as just not really being that useful to man nor beast. The 5th edition Dungeon Master's Guide for D&D is notorious for people not having read it. But even when you do go through it, much of what you have in there is alternative rules and various tools that can help a Dungeon Master, but which don't really qualify as Dungeon Master advice per se. This is one of those few cases where watching streamed games is something that is useful and watchable because you're using it as an education. Though, when you watch a streamed game, typically, like the players, you don't normally see behind the curtain to what the Dungeon Master is doing, thinking, having trouble with, and so on. You don't get to see their thought process. You don't get to see their notes. Watching a streamed game is much closer to the player experience, albeit more passive. So, while you can learn how a game is played and maybe pick up on some of the rules and so on, getting hints and tips from it as a games master is very difficult. And would anyone even want to listen to like a director's commentary, a games master's commentary on a streamed game that is already not that great as a piece of entertainment to consume, and would probably double the runtime? So, 8 hours watching people argue over rules, fudge their dice, and then on top of that you have the games master in the background telling you, yes, I couldn't remember this rule, so I just pulled this out of my ass. Probably not. I don't think that would be terribly entertaining. It's not exactly Mystery Science Theatre material. Yeah, if I look back to a recent example of a game that I ran online in a stream, Candela Obscura, my game notes for that session as the games master are about half a page. most of which was never used because no plan for a game ever survives contact with the players. There were some page references for the main book for areas of the city that the players were likely to visit. There were organisations that may or may not have been involved in what was going on, and a bullet-pointed list of the main NPCs and sort of background lore. There was also a copy-pasted paragraph about how the Quaker owners of Cadbury used to treat their workers, which was advanced for the time, because I was kind of riffing on that whole thing. And as for the monsters, all I had written down was tick things that trade life/soul energy for technological insights, and a second line that said giant tick ? Damn, that was it. It's not a lot to go on. It's not a lot I can show you to offer my advice on. The players didn't even engage with half of what was written down there, and I spent much of the game improvising, which again is something that is hard to show someone how to do or to train people on. And when I say improvising, I don't mean, improvisational comedy troupes and yes, and I mean pulling shit out of your ass at the last minute. So I'm not sure what I can do here, either as Games Master advice or Games Master sections in my own books to make them more worthwhile, or otherwise. My seat of the pants improvisational narrative GMing seems to be out of fashion in a world of prescriptivist story games and aimless OSR hex crawls, and I still have no idea how I could even start teaching people to do what I do, the zen of no mind GMing. Zen no Mushin Game Master. So what then? Tools to help with inspiration, fleshing things out, shortcuts for characterizing NPCs. A book of such tools or references to such tools could rapidly balloon to the point of becoming overwhelming, intimidating, and hard to reference. I don't know, right? I'm critical of these sections in books, and don't get me started on GM advice on YouTube, but I don't have an answer of my own. I like to have an answer of my own if I'm criticizing others. I can't think of how to approach it other than really hating this prescriptivist formalized trend in newer games. I don't know that I have much to offer, and that's all negative. Many of you have seen me Games Master and play at this point on Grimstreams or T-Shirted Historian's channel or on Tabletopless. What is it that you think that I do well that you would like to learn? What would you find helpful in terms of Games Master advice? Is Games Master advice really only for noobs, or can we all learn something? What do you think of this prescriptivist formulaic trend in supposed narrative-led story games? What and where is the best Games Master advice that you've ever read or seen? What would you want from Games Master advice or assistance in a book? Let me know in the comments. I am genuinely curious, not just trying to boost my engagement metrics. I would really like to know. Sang. "Rrrr," said the grinder as it chewed its way through Alice from the crown of her head all the way down to her toes. It ate the lot of her, unfussy, snout to tail, and cleared its plate. It gnashed its way through her dress, her pinafore, her shoes, and her unmentionables. It chewed her hair, devoured her scalp, gobbled up her arms, wolfed down her legs, gorged itself on her torso, noshed on her skin, and gulped her down without so much as a burp to show for it.
The normal question, the first question is always, are these cannibals? No, they are not cannibals. Cannibalism in the true sense of the word implies an interspecies activity. These creatures cannot be considered human. They prey on humans. They do not prey on each other. That's the difference. They attack and they feed only on warm human flesh. Intelligence? Seemingly little or no reasoning power, but basic skills remain are more remembered behaviors from normal life. There are reports of these creatures using tools, but even these actions are the most primitive. The use of external articles as bludgeons and so forth. I might point out to you that even animals will adopt the basic use of tools in this manner. These creatures are nothing but pure, motorized instinct. We must not be lulled by the concept that these are our family members or our friends. They are not. They will not respond to such emotions. They must be destroyed on sight.